Welcome to People More Interesting Than Me, the podcast, where I step back and let fascinating individuals take the spotlight. Join me as I sit down with incredible guests who captivate and inspire, showcasing their stories, experiences, and wisdom that make them truly extraordinary. Tune in for engaging conversations that'll leave you enlightened and entertained. At least I'm entertained. Joining us this week is Jennifer Hyman, a professional cuddler whose work is bringing comfort, healing, and human touch to those who need it most. In a world where genuine connection can sometimes feel out of reach, Jennifer's role as a professional cuddler offers a lifeline of warmth and empathy. In this episode, Jennifer will share her journey, how she discovered the world of professional cuddling, the profound impact her work has on her clients, and the misconceptions and challenges she faces in this unique profession. Whether you're curious about the therapeutic benefits of human touch or interested in unconventional career paths, Jennifer's story is sure to captivate and inspire you.
Thank you very much for being on the show, Jennifer. I really appreciate you being on.
Thanks for having me.
But yeah, I appreciate you being on the show and saw your IMA, and I was like, this would be like really fascinating because this is like one of those things you don't even think about. Like this is like when I read about not a wedding sitter, what was it? A bridesmaid. It was like you could hire a bridesmaid out as well. Like it's one of those things you would never think would be a thing. Like
Mhm.
like a goat lawnmower. Like there's people who they hire like goats to come over rather than
Yep.
using a lawnmower.
hmm
Can you, I guess, show your or kind of tell your story on your personal journey and what led to becoming a professional cuddler?
Yeah. So when I was younger, I didn't ever really know what I wanted to be. I always wish I knew, but it kept changing. It's like, oh, I want to be a vet. No, I want to be an orthodontist. No, I want to be a horse trainer. It's like every 6 months, I wanted to be something else. And so, really, what I lacked was a passion for something. I wish I knew what I wanted when I was younger. There's always that one little boy that's like, I want to be a firefighter. And then he grows up to be a firefighter. And I wish I just knew. It makes life so much simpler when you just know. Um, but I never really knew. I think I'm just very open-minded and I love exploring and learning new things. So it kept switching. But COVID was really when I found my passion because we were all, isolated. And I'm like, wow, I really like people. Like, I wish I were around people more because this sucks. Like, I hated being so alone. I felt like my house was my jail cell. And I just had such a strong desire to be around people and friends. And like, I don't know. Yeah. And I'm like, oh my God, I think I love people. It just kind of hit. And so I knew from there that I needed to do something with people in terms of like my career or vocation. Um, and I guess that sort of made sense. Like I have been a teacher, I've been a nanny, so and that's, it's a very people mentor driven type career. Um, and actually I got into cuddling when I was a nanny. So I was a travel nanny. And when I wasn't traveling, I had a lot of free time. And so I was really just looking for like a side hustle. And so one day I was just hanging out with a friend and we're trying to figure out what I could do. And, we came up with the typical like, oh, you could bartend, Uber, Lyft, whatever. And then he came out of left field and said, oh, you should be a pro cuddler. And I laughed. I was like, LOL, that's not real. And we talked about it for a while, like, oh, that would be so great. I would be so good at that because it just it just works for who I am. Like I love people. I love talking about I love deep talk. I'm not a small talk kind of person. Like right when you meet me, like the small talk will go by very fast. I'm like, tell me your whole life story. Um, and so we talked about it and I felt like that'd be cool, but there's no way. Like that's a great dream. And then one night I was really bored and I feel like I'm totally rambling right
No,
now.
you're doing a great
Am
job.
I
Keep
am
going.
I
Yeah.
getting to the point?
Yeah. Well, this is
Okay.
just remember this episode's about you.
Okay. Okay. Well, okay. So I went through this rabbit hole of research and I'm like, holy shit, I think this is real. And yeah, so I just kind of did my own research, learned about it, found the Cuddle platform that I'm on right now, which is Cuddle Comfort. And honestly, I just kind of went off from there. That's where I really learned how to be a pro. And it really I just learned through experience, trial and error, and I've done it for a year and a half now, and it's great. I love it. I feel like it's very, very beneficial for people in so many ways. I mean, because of COVID and just how technology is really advancing rapidly, we're becoming more isolated and less just connected from one another. And so it's kind of bizarre how much people really don't connect genuinely and people just don't have that natural touch with one another. Like people are very touch deprived, I would say right now. So I see the benefits and the value from it. And honestly, right now, what I'm working on, because it's such a niche, novel, upcoming industry, is like me and the other pros, we're really creating the code of ethics for it right now. Um, so number one, we're just trying to give exposure because most people that I talk to, we're like the first people telling them like this is a thing. And then number two, after we like show them that it is a thing, we have to explain and educate what it is. And then number three, we have to show them the value. So we're really trying to pave the way for what it really is as an industry. So it's very novel, very unique, very new, but I feel like when people really understand what it is, there's a lot of value in it. That was a lot. I
No,
feel
no,
like I
that
answered
was a
maybe
great
like
intro.
10 questions in a
No,
whole
no, no.
story.
That was great
I'm
because
sorry for the
I have
monologue.
more questions. Uh,
Okay.
so the first one, or this is more of a kind of like a observation from the research I did or the background I did for this is, and just basic thoughts is the fact that, I mean, COVID kind of, you know, set everyone back on that physical touch who didn't have like imagine the people who didn't have family members or didn't have, or they had a severe fear of going out. Like I have a friend who, and everyone probably has a friend like this during COVID, and you know, it's crazy times. Like they would wash the groceries. They would get the groceries, they would wash them because they were from the outside. And just saying that now, you know,
Hmm.
sounds crazy. But like back then, it wasn't as crazy.
Hmm.
And just the thought of, you know, like cuddling with someone back then. I don't know if you're familiar with slap cup or, you know, like what's it called? Flip cup. You know, like the beer drinking game, the college drinking game where people would like share cups. Where the idea of that now seems completely different. And the idea of, you know, like physical touch with another person, I feel like severely degraded. And there was like fear of doing that in COVID. And the other thing, just to take it one more step forward with, as you know, COVID like transcended teleworking. It helped a lot of people, but it also probably made them a lot more stationary and isolated, like islands. And I feel
Hmm.
like your industry probably helps with that, like, you know, that need, that kind of those islands who need support, like physical touch. Um, something that like they wouldn't get otherwise. They get their groceries delivered. They get like they never go into the office. Like there's no reason to ever leave. That's I and that's why where I saw like your profession is to help that vacuum of that need of that physical touch. Like they might get verbal, they might get um all these other things that they can kind of like, like bring in Grubhub. They've got like you name it nowadays, they have it. But
Right.
that was just one thing where I can see like your business thriving. And that makes sense that you're kind of pioneering this in this day and age, especially with like you were saying AI, because
Mhm.
AI, like with what you're doing as well, now they're trying to outsource like, like physical like girlfriends, like stuff like that where
Crazy.
yeah, where they're, it's one more thing that they're trying to artificially produce to sustain, Maslow's hierarchy of needs on a emotional and I guess companion type level.
I feel like
I,
nothing can replace the human in terms of that. Like that's just there's no way. There's no way.
yeah, and I don't know where I'm pulling this from my brain, but it's like I mean your skin cells not just have like, more motor neurons, they actually have physical touch neurons where they,
Right. It's way too
stimulate.
complex.
Yeah, and I'm not even going to try to explain it, but I'm pretty sure physical touch, releases endorphins and like
Hmm.
it makes strong connections, like all these. Actually, I do have one that says, I think I was reading it on some parenting blog. It was like a kid really needs to understand something, they have to do it like 60 times. However, if they do it during play, it's like 10 or 20 times. It's just the fact that they're either like, having
Amazing.
fun, like making bonds with other kids, like they're making these strong connections on a physical and probably like, like relationships or friendships with these kids. And it's enhancing these memories or enhancing these thoughts or things like that. So it's even more important. Uh, and then
Yeah.
I had a couple of small questions that popped in my head that
Yeah.
are A, are you married? And if you are, how does this affect your professional career?
That's a really good question. I'm actually going to piggyback off of something you just said really quick,
Okay.
which um like it's a balancing act, right? Like you want to protect yourself, right? Um to keep yourself healthy. But, during COVID we went way too far. Or not during COVID, but like I feel like you don't want to take it too far because then it can be detrimental, Like, yes, do take the necessary actions to protect yourself and keep yourself healthy, but it's a balancing act. And eventually you could scrub those groceries so hard or like where I think there's an article where it's like, oh, make sure you wear masks when you kiss. And I'm like, okay, well, there you're gonna lose something there. Like, you know, so you gotta figure it out. But okay, to answer the question, am I married and how does that affect my cuddling? Is that what you're
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
No. I am not married. Um, living the single life. How does that affect my cuddling? So to me, oh, this is so huge. Um, this is part of what I'm trying to explain
Map
to
out.
people is that it is a platonic therapeutic cuddling service. It's platonic cuddle therapy and nothing more. There is no extras on top of that. Um,
The way I saw it described that kind of like changed my view of it is non-sexual contact. That's what it is, non-sexual contact.
mhm.
And that kind of just, like shuts down all that other stuff.
You're right. It really is like we're such a touch deprived society. Like I feel like people don't even hug. There's a lot of people that just they're online all the time at work, and they go home and watch TV. And they don't socialize, they don't hang out with friends, they don't even try to make friends. It's like the only thing that they do is have wishful thinking. Like, oh, it'd be great if I had friends, but I don't have the confidence. I'm too lazy. Like, it's mostly those things, honestly. The lack of confidence and the laziness or the insecurities of how, like, what do I, what are they going to think of me? Um, which I guess goes to confidence as well. But I think that's a huge part of the session as well. It's not just like, okay, I'm there to fulfill a void. Like you're missing this touch, and that touch feels really great, and it's positive and it's soothing and relaxing. But we also talk about that in a lot of the sessions. It's like, okay, you want more of this. How can you get more of this without like needing me, essentially, And I've had a session where I've worked on a dating profile with another guy, like while we're cuddling, like, hey, let's work on this. But also, let's talk about not just the profile, but what can you do to, improve the things that you want to improve on to make yourself more desirable to a significant other. Um, it's all over the place because some are like that, and some are just like, I am so overworked. I just need to relax. Like, let's just chill, let's talk, and let's rest for a little while. And so all the cuddle sessions are so different because they all come in with very different needs and everything. But yeah, to answer your question, as long as whoever I'm dating sees it as, a platonic cuddle service, I think it should be fine. I mean, at the same time, I can see it from their perspective because it is an intimate environment, and I can see how they might be uncomfortable with that. For me, I see it as it's a professional thing for me, and I enjoy it. I like it. So if someone that I started dating was uncomfortable, I guess that would just be a deal breaker for that relationship.
Makes
But I
sense.
honestly don't really even, I don't know. Whatever. We can skip that part.
Okay.
I probably date. I'm not looking to get married or have kids, so that probably helps too.
Yeah. Yeah. Whatever. Honestly, these days, it's really whatever you want, whatever makes you happy, to be fair. Um,
Yeah.
so, and obviously you can answer this how you like, but I wanted to see what kind of like range, like obviously you're doing this for a living, right? Like
That's the goal.
that's the goal.
I'm so close.
Okay.
Like I'm on TikTok, I'm on Cuddle Comfort. There's been a lot of growth. Um, but like I kind of said before, almost every person I talk to doesn't know that it exists. And so because they're hearing it for the first time or it's very new to them, they need to they're learning about it. They want to be educated more and know that there's value. So I feel like I'm more in the exposure and education phase. And so I do get bookings but it's not quite enough to make it full time. Although I am, that's literally all I'm doing right now is cuddling, but I'm also doing part-time stuff as well.
Okay. I was just trying to get like like a basis to see like if you can make, obviously that's what you're trying to do right now, is what the salary range would be, obviously to others to actually, like you dipped your toe in and then you kind of jumped in after that. I was just seeing like what others, if they're interested in also being colors, or like if that's like a good avenue to go down, basically.
Yeah. You have to
Uh,
have a certain skill set for it for sure. And I think if a pro or if an individual did have the skill set, it would, in this time, it would be more beneficial to see it as more of a side because it's just so in the beginning.
niche. Yeah.
It's just in its infancy right now. But I think there's so much potential for it.
So can you, and I know you already kind of touched on what goes into it. Like it's more of kind of like it's based on what do you call it? Customer, client, uh,
Oh, I
what
just call them like the cuddly.
cuddly. I like
No, we're
that.
both cuddlers. We're cuddling each other, but I'm like the pro and they're the cuddly or the
I
cuddler.
like that.
Yeah.
So what usually goes into it? Like what's the process? Like obviously they go to the website. What's the process look like from there, I guess? They open up the
Okay.
web page.
Right. So they'll either find me on TikTok or on Cuddle Comfort and they'll message me, hey, I'm interested in a cuddle session. And I'm like, great. So if once I find that they're interested and they want to have a session, then there's a vetting process. And from there, we do a video chat, and it's essentially a two-way interview. So from there, I ask them basic questions like that's where the like a little bit of small talk comes in, like, so how are you? What do you do for work? What do you do for fun? And it's a conversation where I get to know them and I'm really gauging who they are and I'm trying to see what their intentions are. That's really the big thing. And the vibe that they're giving off. Because, first of all, our intentions need to be the same, right? Because I definitely get people that are trying to look for more. And I'm like, nope, this is a cuddling site. You're not going to get more. And there's other sites that you can go to for more. So go there. Um, So the big thing is intentions. The other thing is vibe, because it's kind of like finding any therapist. Like I don't think that you should just stick with the first therapist that you talk to. Like you really want to have a good connection because you're going to get a lot more value out of it. And so I feel like if the back and forth is good, and I don't feel like there's any weirdness there, we're good. I think I have a pretty good read on people. I think I have a, I think I have a very good read on people. Uh, so that's also part of it, is I'm trying to see like, is there anything that is concerning for me?
Mhm.
Honestly, I've never had a problem with that. It's just more of what are your intentions and would this be a good session for you? So anyways, that's part of the vetting process. I ask for their name. I do a little my own personal background check on them. If everything is great, I just give them the details. I typically host, so I explain to them what the cuddle session would look like. And so I'll move on to the cuddle session. So typically I'll make the environment very cozy, very comfortable. I'll like light a candle, kind of dim the lights, just make it very chill, relaxed. I'll put on some music. Um, and then during the cuddle session, it's honestly super chill. I always have a starting position for them for a couple reasons. One is some people that start with it are are a little bit nervous because we're still, this is a new relationship and they don't really know what to do. So I give them a position to start in, which is them on their back and me cuddling them. And so if they're in the back, it's like, okay, I'm kind of just like chilling here and it feels nice because I'm cuddling them. And if I cuddle them and something goes wrong, I can push away. So it's also a security thing for me. And then we just get to know each other. We talk and things have kind of evolve from there. And as we get comfortable, we can change up the positions. And a huge thing that I also let them know is like, if you ever feel uncomfortable or if you feel like you want to touch somewhere, but you're unsure if I'm okay with it, ask. Just ask. Because, sometimes they'll be like stiff and they're like, can I move? Can I touch you on your arm? Can I like, caress you here? Can I, you know? And I'm like, just ask, you know? Um, but it's just cuddling, relaxing, talking about things that they need to talk about or really, really want to talk about. And it can go a lot of different ways. It can get very vulnerable and deep. It can get very lively and fun. It just kind of goes in the direction that it needs to go.
Okay.
And that's the session.
I it makes complete sense. Uh what kind of obviously this is in its infancy, like you guys were saying, or you were saying. What kind of like certification do you need? Like, do you need any certifications or
I would say that's part of the process too, because I'm gonna be totally honest. Like there's um, a cuddle business in California called Cuddle Sanctuary. That's probably the biggest one. Literally the Kardashians went there and they had a whole shindig over there. And I know they offer like teachings and cuddling, but this is like on the field learning, gotta be honest. And I think eventually there will be more legitimate trainings, but I think it's all about skill set. Because if you're not good, people aren't gonna hire you. Um, the skill set that you need to be hireable, like for people to want to go to you as a pro, I would say number one is like, oh, actually, there's a few of them, but you need to be empathetic. You need to be able to put yourself in people's shoes because they're going to talk about, I mean, anything really. Another one is you obviously you have to be great with strangers because you're going to be meeting a lot of people you don't know, and it's in an intimate setting. Um, you got to have a high EI, emotional intelligence, because of the range of conversations. It is probably a riskier job, but that's why I go through the screening process and the background checks. Um, and just being communicative and engaging. I would say all of those are really, really crucial. And honestly, a lot of people don't, I think, have high levels of those skills.
Mhm.
But if you do, you would be really, really good at it. And I think that's something that I've learned from previous jobs over time. And that's something that you could put into a I don't know, cuddle class.
Mhm.
But again, it's just so new. It's honestly, we're still building it up.
Yeah, that
So
makes sense. And the other thing is you said, I mean, you were a teacher. So the other big thing, I mean, you probably realize is with like younger children, like sometimes they're not able to put into words like how they're feeling, but they have like human cues. Like if you look
mm,
at like in the medical care system for children, children aren't able to quantify or able to explain what pain they have. So they have that scale, like the face, like the five faces, like which one do you
we're shaking
feel?
those things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So I would imagine that's what's helped you to get to this point is that like, like teaching, it's never 100% like hearing what they say because literally you're teaching them how to speak, you're teaching them how to write and all this other details where you kind of have to see them and not feel them obviously, but understand their cues, how they're feeling, what they're saying, but what they're actually saying.
Yeah, it's reading between the lines for
Yeah.
sure. It's almost like feeling an energy. What's the energy in the room? What am I seeing on your face? What are those expressions that are happening? You can hear it in like noises if there's a sigh. And again, where our bodies are touching. So you can
Like
tell if they're relaxed or they're tense. And I think because in regular therapy, there's boundaries, right? But because there's no boundaries, I think people are a lot more open because the environment is so relaxed and it's so comfortable. Like I've had cuddlies tell me like, like after they've told me something, they'll be like, "Oh my God, I can't believe I just told you that." Like I've never told anybody that before. And it's just because of the setting. It's just, I don't know, it's just so chill. So they feel like they can easily just talk. And that's part of why it's so nice. Yeah, just the environment's good.
yeah, so you're giving them kind of an environment where they feel, like lightless, like feeling that like they can be I don't know if it's like a Japanese proverb or something, but they say that you have three faces, the face that you show like the public, the face that you show family and friends, and then like who
You're
you are. Yeah.
really. Yeah. No, I think I get a lot of that, especially if there's like regulars and I see them week after week, it's like, yeah, there's like no, it's almost like they had a drink or several.
Yeah.
The inhibitions just go.
And I would imagine like if you have regulars, it just like slowly whittle away. Like the armor that they had at their first meeting is probably like let's say like 3 months or like 4 months down the line, they're a completely different person from the person you originally met.
Yeah, yeah, it's almost hard to describe, but it's a relationship. And so things build off of that and it gets comfortable. And so they can just say, I don't know. It's what's nice about this is there's no bias, there's no judgment, and they come to me not knowing me, which I think helps a lot, right? Because when people know you, they have expectations for you. And so when they come to see me, it's like, oh, this person doesn't know my past. I feel like I could just say whatever I want. It's a fresh, clean slate. So even from the beginning, there's not much holding back. And but although I do see progress from the beginning, it's honestly a great start.
Yeah, because I mean, you're breaking the ice. The hardest part I would assume is making it there once. Yeah, how often is it that you only get a person to show up only once? Because I feel like that would be like all this hard work, like tracking you down, like setting up the meeting,
Mm.
getting approved. Like one meeting would be like, and you did bring this up that maybe it's not a good fit or something like that, but like if you have a good first meeting, I would be surprised if there wasn't more to follow. Is that kind of the case?
That's actually a really great question. And I actually get a lot of that where it's just meeting once, but I'll tell you why. A lot of the people that I see are travelers, people coming to Tampa
That makes sense.
for work or for pleasure, typically work. And these are people that are like married to their job or they're workaholics and they're constantly traveling all over the place. And so they really need something like this because they're married to their job. And so it's hard for them to sustain any kind of relationship unless it's like a working relationship, but they're not really hugging or they're not cuddling
Yeah,
the people they
yeah,
work with, but they don't have time to develop close, intimate relationships with people because they're everywhere all the time. They're just acquaintances with everybody. And so I see that a lot. So that's what I get the most of. Um, and so I'll get a message saying, hey, I'm here for a work conference for the weekend. Are you available this weekend for a cuddle session? And then, if they come back, then we'll do a session if they come back. But I really do get a lot of that.
okay. Then no, that's like one of the things that it makes complete sense when you explain it. It's kind of like I'm not in a safe area, like, and I just need, someone to kind of not, well, comfort me. That is a safe person that, can be here. Whereas I'm in a city of strangers, like I'm looking to make a stranger into a friend.
Yeah.
What I wanted to talk about is kind of this is a small question, like the range. Like, is it male and female, whatever gender?
Demographics
Yeah.
stuff. That's a great question. So everybody that I've cuddled has been a male.
Okay.
And the age range is typically 30s through 50s, with outliers being 20s and 60s plus. Um, in terms of like socioeconomic status, that's all over the place. I've cuddled a grocery clerk that works at Publix, and I've cuddled a high-level executive. That's all over the place. Um, because, the need for touch and connection and therapy, that doesn't discriminate against race or class or anything. Um, uh, what's interesting is like, I always find it interesting when I get messages from the guys that skew younger, like guys younger than me in like their 20s. they have actually been like the most respectful cuddlies I've ever had. They're always the most respectful. Not that the others aren't, but they're like, they always surprise me. I'm like, why are you messaging me? But it's actually, they've also, I feel like, been the saddest ones too. Because those have all been like very sad medical diagnoses. Like two of them had cancer and one had a rare disease. I don't even know what it was, but he had to skip grade school for since like seventh or eighth grade. He had to be taken out of school, and I don't know, but it had something very, very rare.
Mhm.
Um, but anyways, back to the original question. Bell curve, typically males 30s through 50s. I'm actually having my first virtual session with a woman tomorrow.
Okay. Man, that's interesting. Well, that's good too, because I mean, obviously I could see it go both ways. There's no reason it wouldn't. And then leading on to that question, how often it's usually one individual, right? And it's usually at your choosing place, correct? That
Mhm.
way, like you don't have awkward situations with like a, like a wife in the room or like a sister in the room. It's
Mm-mm.
usually like a 1v1 type situation.
Yes.
Okay, that's good because I obviously you deal with these situations and stuff like that. I would just imagine A, you cannot do your best to help if there's other people in the room. You know what I mean? Like they could be making the person tense. They could be, like
Yeah.
in my opinion, it would be like defeating the whole purpose of.
Right. It's distracting and it's just extremely distracting. If they're there, they're gonna be like, where's our privacy? Whereas I feel like I can't really say what I want to say or feel how I want to feel if there's like other people surrounding this environment. I feel like there's a breach. So yeah.
Um, what's been the most rewarding part? I would assume maybe possibly a client who you've kind of, I know you've been doing it for a year, but maybe a client who's just like you said like you worked on the dating profile, you help them kind of um I guess get them to a level where they can kind of look for people where they can, like ask to cuddle, like I don't know what you would call that, volunteering cuddling.
Yeah. That's kind of hard. The thing that I value the most, and I think a lot of them value most, is the genuine connection with someone, the one-on-one, undivided attention and affection. I really don't think a lot of people get that kind of quality anymore.
Hmm.
Um, I don't think a lot of people see that as such a high value anymore because technology keeps capturing our attention. You'll see everybody sees this, like a couple or friends that are out to dinner and they're all sitting next to each other, but nobody's looking at each other because they're all looking down at their phones. Um, and I feel like there's a lot of missed social connection and experiences that could be made, a lot of missed laughter. Um, and there's no technology. I mean, there's background music, but we're not interacting with the tech. So it's a lot of quality time and connection and sharing of stories, sharing of feelings, and like they leave with so much either learning something to almost like homework, because sometimes it's like, okay, we should do this to improve ourselves, right? So sometimes they leave with a goal for themselves or just totally relaxed or with clarity about something because we talked through a certain thing about their lives. Like, I think there's just a lot of value in that we're missing today.
So you say you guys are kind of working on like the guidelines and kind of the structure and even, like training for this. What do you see the big hurdles moving forward as this is kind of like growing so fast?
The biggest hurdle that I'm facing is distinguishing that it is platonic. I mean, I get a lot of people saying, do you do more? Like, I'll pay you more if you do more. And then I'm like, no, like I just say like, no, this is platonic. So, and I have to do that so much, because it's so new. And I don't know, or people are like, oh, this is such a bait and switch. They just don't believe it. Um, and I feel like touch is a gray area, right? It's not like no touch or sexual touch. Like those shouldn't be the only two options, and I feel like
Mhm.
our society is kind of like that. Um, and that's not true for every relationship, but I do think it is sort of a gray area where you should have, you can either not touch, you should have your positive platonic touch that, like a hug, or it's supposed to be where it's just positive and soothing and relaxing. And then you have your sexual touch. But I I just don't think there's that people are having enough of that platonic soothing touch in general. And that's why this is a thing. Um, so I don't know if I answered your question.
No, no, you did. It was basically the stigma attached to kind of more than just a platonic touch, that you wanted to distinguish between
Right,
sexual and yeah.
the biggest hurdle, right? It's just, yeah, that it's not that.
So obviously, like Michael Jordan had like the flu and he still went to go play basketball, like in some playoffs, and it's well known or something like that. How do you deal like for example, say you've got a session coming up and you're just emotionally drained. Like what do you do with that? Like do you know what I mean? Like you can't really go into something like that, in my opinion, with like a fake like mood, fake face. How do you try to keep up your levels, your emotional levels before a session?
I'm never emotionally drained. Which is actually sort of true. I'm like naturally a very happy person, but I do a lot of things that keep me grounded, that
Hmm.
keep me happy, which helps a lot. So emotional drainage doesn't is pretty rare for me. Like something pretty drastic has to happen, or I have to be stressed out of my mind,
Hmm.
which I'm very thankful has not happened for a while. Um, but yeah, if I was not in a right mindset, then I would probably notify and be like, hey, today is not the day. I don't want to make this session bad for you because right now I'm not in a good mental state. Um, and I want this to be worthwhile for you. So let's reschedule to like next week. I'd probably do something like that. But honestly, I I keep myself pretty level-headed. Like I don't drink. So I've never had a hangover in my life. I've never even been drunk in my life. So that's never gonna deter me in any way. I'm huge on sleep. I'm huge on health, which is a part of why I think I'm good at this, is because I think I help people in terms of their mental health and well-being, their physical health and well-being. I'm huge on sleep, huge on exercise, huge on social interactions with others. Um, yeah, I take walks like every day. I do yoga every day. So it just honestly does not happen that often. That was a good question though.
Yeah. No, I for some reason I thought that I was just like, like doctors, they don't go in when they ha like if you saw your doctor coughing or like, like hacking up a
Right.
lung, you'd be like, all right.
Uh-oh.
And it kind of goes to, I saw this crazy clip. It was some, like English soccer team, and they had two like they're not EMTs, but like the first aid, whoever the medics, we'll call them medics. They were
Yeah.
running on the field, but they weighed like 250 pounds like each. And when I
Oh
say
no.
running, they were going the fastest they could. And like the players ran to the people to take the med kits and ran back because they were going so slow. And in those instances, obviously I know that there's, like special circumstances, but I feel like you can't really be a hypocrite in your own field, in at least in the medical fitness, those levels of or areas. I feel like it's just counterproductive on a
Right.
like not just sight, but like, am I going to trust your opinion? Do I trust you as a doctor if you're telling me to run and lose weight and you're, like huffing and
You're
puffing
not.
to get to the stairs? Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
something like that.
I get
Um, yeah. Um, so obviously we talked about where cuddling is going to go from here. Do you see it being like, um, I'm trying to compare it to something that's kind of expanded. And I wanted to compare it to kind of like, Colorado and psychedelics, how it's become more of a like a medical treatment or like a medical therapy for some people. Do you see it being more mainstream into kind of medical fields, or do you see it more into I, I don't know what I will say. Maybe
I get what you're
counseling.
saying.
Yeah.
I get what you're saying. I see it a lot like massage, to be
Hmm.
honest. There's a lot of parallels because when massage first broke out, they're having a lot of the same problems, right? Like, because massage is a very similar to touch therapy, right? You go for physical recovery and relaxation, de-stressing, right? Um, and so in the beginning, it's like, whoa, this person's gonna be touching all over my body. And so they also dealt with like, oh, there's more though, right? For more, it's not just this physical recovery relaxation. And so it's honestly very similar. And now massage is covered by insurance. So that, it's actually really very similar. The difference is, this is more just touch. Think of it as like a long hug, right? You have to really think of it as like a long reclined hug. And there's a lot of more, there's a lot more talking involved. You can talk during massage. A lot of people don't want to because they're just like chill. Um, but there's a mental connection aspect to it as well. So, but massage was happened a long time ago, and this is just so young that we're facing those hurdles now. And I think society is just getting less connected. We're becoming more isolated. I don't see us getting more connected. Unfortunately, like honestly, this is super sad. I don't like that I'm saying this, but I do think that we are getting, less connected as a society with technology just advancing like crazy. Like Apple came out with the goggle, the VR goggles where, okay, I'm gonna just be hidden behind this mask in a completely different universe. I'm gonna realize I'm sitting in my room for 10 hours because I have these goggles on. And yeah, I like we're all gonna be living in like different universes. So then you get out of that universe and you're like, holy shit. I feel like it'll just hit you and you're like, oh my God, I'm alone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I do think I mean, I can't predict the future, but I really believe that this is just a growing thing. I don't know how big it will be. I don't know if it'll be as successful as massage therapy, but I can definitely see it getting there. And yeah, I don't know how much time it will take, but yes, I think it's growing.
Yeah, I definitely see that just because, like all these combined things of trying to save time or even, you know, I say hustle culture, but it's more like shortcut culture where stuff is like if it takes me longer than X, then I want something, smaller than X in the future. And that's with, like the list of stuff we do, like mowing your lawn, playing with your kids, like I don't know, depending on like whatever your preferences are of this column, I don't want to do any of this, and this is one I would have spent more time on. Like, I think that's what it comes down to.
Right.
Okay, last question.
Okay.
What is something that your parents did that you like to pass on to the next generation? Not necessarily to have kids, but more like the human race. And what is something different or new that you think would be beneficial that your parents didn't do or something new?
Those are really good questions. Something that my parents did that was really, really good. Um, I'm really lucky with the parents that I had. I think my parents are like poster parents. Um, so they did a lot of right. Uh, I and the reason I say that is because I had a very stable upbringing. There was no divorce, no toxicity, no game playing. Um, Everything was like I had a mom and a dad that loved me unconditionally. They supported me like no matter what. And I think right there, that's mind blowing. I didn't realize how good I had it until I started becoming really social and really like wanting to learn about people's backgrounds and sharing stories and stuff. Because when I meet people, I really like, I want to just get to know them. And so when I started doing that, it's like, oh, my parents are divorced. Oh, I'm estranged from this person. Oh, I don't talk to them. Oh, like there's just always something wrong. Um, and no, to this day, I have a great relationship with my parents. And if I needed anything, I have them as a rock. So I would pass that forward. Um, And I think that's why I'm good at cuddling too, is because I feel like I'm sort of a rock for them.
Mhm.
I'm stable and stuff. Something that I wish they could do differently.
Or the other frame is new. You know how uh like for example, like our parents or my parents to be frame of reference, they obviously raised me in the 90s when there was different, like rules of parenting. Like you can drink from the hose, you can like don't answer the door because like, like people are gonna come get you. Like what is something like in this day and age you think is something good to pass on to like humankind?
Um, okay, I'm still gonna take it from the angle of my parents.
That's fine.
Um, it's kind of interesting. My parents are very safe. They're like, Jen, be a teacher. That's stable. That's safe. And that didn't last. That didn't work for me. They always just were like, have a job, get married, have kids. They liked that traditional lifestyle. And that does not work for me. And so I think I would encourage, I don't want to say do whatever you want. You can be anything because I don't agree. If someone said to me you could be an astronaut, no, I fucking can't. I can't be an astronaut. I would hate that and I would suck at it and I'd be wasting my time if I tried to go for it. But I think I wish they pushed me a little bit more to be adventurous. Although it's hilarious. I actually think I'm pretty adventurous. So it worked out. It actually worked out. But I I guess I would push a balance of safety and adventure for future generations. Because you don't want to go crazy, but
Yeah.
you also don't want to be in a box.
No, that makes complete sense. And like I said, it's just a new thought to add on to the pile.
No,
Because
it's a fact. You guys have to do this. Everyone that listens to this must do this for future
there
generations.
you go.
Or
It's a
they're
fact.
going to jail.
It's a fact. It's not an opinion. No,
Right.
I like that. Well, anything how people can find you or anything you want to promote while you're here?
Yes, I'm gonna promote myself. You can find me on Cuddle Comfort under the username Cuddle Crasher, or you can find me on TikTok, also under the name Cuddle Crasher, and you can DM me for a cuddle session, typically 1 or 2 hours, but I also have add-ons. So we can like go out to eat and then have a cuddle session, or I also do tours, which is another kind of bonus. So like I've done this for for a couple of travelers where if they're going to be in Tampa for the weekend, they have a free day, then I'll ask them like, hey, do you want to do a Tampa tour? And I'll insert cuddle session. And they're like, yeah, let's go. So I'll ask them what they like to do, and I'll curate a whole itinerary, and we'll just have like a fun day in Tampa. I'll give them a tour. We'll do a cuddle session, and it's just like a great way to like get your mind off of work and just have fun. And also tour a new city. So I do that as well. And yeah, I think that's it.
No, that's great. That's a great shout out. But thank you for being on the show. I kind of like opened my view of this, and it's so good to actually talk to a person who's involved in it rather than, reading an article on like BuzzFeed or like
Yeah.
I don't read Cosmo a lot, but like those articles that are kind of like, like they're just looking for the clickbait rather than the actual, like just like what you're doing, the human touch
Primary
kind of.
resource.
Yeah, like I'm not reading statistics. I'm not getting, like you mentioned Kim Kardashian. I imagine when they talked about it, they tried to, like
Exaggerate stuff.
drama. Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
it was nice to actually get a human to talk about it, and it was awesome. So thanks for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
It was fun.
If you like this week's episode of People More Interesting Than Me, please follow me on Apple Podcasts so you won't miss out on more episodes like these.